Hi guys, I'm here again with my orchids, and today I want to tell you more about a technique that I actually told already about in my previous video where I was telling you how I water my orchids. So for today's video, for this technique, you only need a spray bottle and the orchids. So let's get started. So I told in my previous video that all my orchids I've bought from an orchidery. So this place which is like a greenhouse, and it sells and grows only orchids. And when I was buying my last orchids, what they told me, because I was interested on how should I take care of my keiki, which is growing on one of my plants, and what should I do to grow it successfully and then pot it and then grow it into a plant. So what they told me there is to get a spray bottle and spray the little keiki. I will show you how it looks now. It's growing on the end of this stalk, and at the beginning it only had this one big root. But since I started spraying it, so now I'm gonna spray all over my table, but I spray it like this. And since I've been doing this, it has been producing new roots and it's still producing new ones. So now I'm able to repot it, or actually just cut it off and pot it, because it has some roots and it will, or it should be able to survive on its own. So when I got this tip and they told me I should do that, I thought in this orchidery every now and then, I don't know the exact hour, there comes this mist shower kind of thing that waters the orchids. And that happens a couple of times during the day. Actually, once we were in there when it started, so we had to get out from the flowers quite fast so we don't get all wet. And so I thought, why not do this to the rest of my plants as well, because the roots, as you can see, for example on this one, the roots, they get really dry right away. So you water them and then on the same day they look like this already at the end of the day. But for example with this one, the roots inside the pot, they look really good. They are green, they are watered, and they are providing enough moisture for the plant. But then the roots on here that are on the surface, they are dry and basically they don't help the plant. So after I went there and after they told me I should spray the keiki, I thought, why not spray the rest of the plants as well? So what I do with the spray bottle, I do this, I spray the roots. Sometimes I do this when I wake up, I do it, and then I see if at some part of the day I need to do it again, and then I do it again. But even once a day, it's still helping the plant better than if you don't do it at all. And at the beginning I was thinking, well, this is just an extra thing that I'm doing for my orchids. Of course it takes time, because if you do it daily, but in the end it takes you maybe a couple of minutes at the most to go through all of the orchids, and it helps the orchids. What I've noticed, so here I have all of my orchids that are blooming, and if you remember from my previous video, they were also in bloom. So it helps the orchid to keep the blooms fresh for longer, so they don't dry out as fast. And also I've noticed that the orchids have started producing new roots, and like all of the orchids. So they're producing new roots, they started growing their new leaves, and I think this what I've been doing is helping them, because before I didn't notice all of my orchids doing this at the exact same time. So this must be helping them to keep healthier. So that's why I thought I would tell you about this technique a little bit more, and I would tell you how it has helped me, so you can also do this and keep your orchids blooming longer, keep your orchids green and healthy. So get yourself a spray bottle, spray them daily. If it's really humid where you are, maybe you don't need to do it that often. If it's really dry where you are, then do it a couple of times in a day and see how you get along. But because the orchids, they tell you when they're dry, your job is pretty simple. So again, let's see, I will take one of the big ones, because there you can see also how this one is producing new roots. So there is a new root growing here, and there is also one on the other side. So I'm gonna spray them. And you can see the roots are green right away. Also, I told you that I water the orchids with not just tap water, but I boil some hot water and then I mix it with tap water, so I get this lukewarm water, and then I get a little bit softer water for watering the orchids. I don't do the same thing with the water that I spray the orchids with. I just fill the bottle whenever it's empty, and then I leave it standing somewhere, so it's not cold water, it's not exactly the same water that I use for watering them, but it's been working like this, and it's been helping my plants. So that's how I do it. And if you want to see the other video where I showed how I water the plants, then I will link that below, so you can see that as well for the actual watering. So this is just keeping the top roots fresh and just trying to help the plant a little bit more, especially during dry periods, because here the summer has been really hot, really dry. So that's also affecting the plants inside, not just the plants outside. So it will only take a little bit of your time, but it will help your plants a lot. Like you can see, my orchids are blooming beautifully and keeping fresh and green, and it takes only a little bit of my time, so I don't mind doing that for them. And just one little reminder, this is not related to this, but this is related to the summer, and this is something that is very dangerous to your orchids and that you should think about, because I forget sometimes, even though I know what happens and I try to remember, but sometimes I'm so tired I go to sleep and then in the morning I realize what had happened. So like I told in my previous video, I have my orchids here on the window or near the window, and in the morning there's direct sunlight coming from the window and it gets really hot. I mean, it gets really hot and way too hot for the plants. And what it does, if you leave the plants in direct sunlight, so not indirect sunlight, but in somewhere where it's direct sunlight, this is what can happen to the plants. So it burns the leaves, they go yellow, and there's no way back, so they stay like that. It doesn't kill the plant necessarily, So if you keep good care of the plant afterwards, the plant can still recover and live, but it cannot recover the leaves, so they will die off. And well, at least in my case, I think it's happened almost every time. They can get back to a little bit greenish, but then at some point they still die. And yeah, it is very important to watch the place where you keep your orchids, especially during summertime, because the sun can destroy the plants. So do that also for your orchids, and you will have them beautiful, blooming and cheering up your day. I hope you found this little bottle tip useful, and let me know if you do try this tip. Let me know how that affects your orchids, but give them at least a month's time. So the changes, they don't happen in one day. So give it a time, do it consistently, and then let me know how you get along. And if you like the tip, you know what to do. The thumb, leave it there, and subscribe, because there will be more videos of orchids. So if you want to hear more tips like about the keiki or about repotting the plants, then subscribe and you will see the next videos as well. Thank you for watching my video. Bye bye until next time.